Well, hello. Welcome, everybody, to the LMS Meets 2017, What Every Buyer Needs to Know. This is John Lay. I'm the CEO and lead analyst at Talented Learning. How did it ever get to be 2017 so quickly was the thought I kept thinking as I was writing this presentation here over the last month, getting ready to share our research of the last few years. I started with LMSs almost 20 years ago. To this very month is when my first introduction to working with LMSs, and really I've spent my career square in the middle of working with LMSs, selling LMSs, and now consulting with organizations that are buying LMSs. And so for better or worse, my life is somewhat LMS-y in how I approach it. For 13 years of my career, almost uncharacteristically, I ended up as an LMS sales professional. I worked for two major enterprise-level corporate learning management system organizations, and I worked through really lots of change and mergers and acquisitions over a long time period. And watched the industry really change from being monolithic systems to what I'm going to share with you today. Throughout those 13 years, though, what I discovered was, at least for myself, I was never thrilled with the coverage of the industry. I always thought it was very great on instructional technology and on the education aspects, and there was certainly a lot of marketing from an analyst standpoint, but I thought what lacked was some real practical, hands-on advice on buying and selling learning management systems learned through a career, or learning technology through a career. And so because of that, I founded Talented Learning 3 full years ago. We just crossed into our fourth full year here of being an analyst organization. In that process, or in that time period, I've reviewed now 125 different learning management systems. So for 13 years, I was really stuck in really one aspect of high-end enterprise-wide learning management systems, and I've spent the last 3 years really learning about the much bigger segment of the market, which is everything else. All in all, though, by carrying a bag and helping my clients or our clients purchase learning technology, I've now been a part of over $65 million of contracts and purchases on both the buyer and the seller side. And really that's what I try to bring, that level of experience and practicality to all of our research, including what I'm going to share with you today. And so we're now 4 years old, and what we do is really simple. We just write for free on lots of topics. We provide topics on how to buy, how to sell learning technology, the features, the vendors, the markets, the segments, and really do our best to take a serious and thoughtful approach on every blog article to help provide resources on talentedlearning.com that anybody can use to get smarter about learning technology and then also to purchase it better. We also have premium content. Like last year we released our first paid publication, which is called the LMS Almanac, where we consolidated the information and survey and profiles of 75 different vendors and provided the trends and analysis on what was going on in the marketplace. And we'll share some of that with you today in the updated 2017 version. But primarily what we do from a consulting standpoint is we help LMS buyers buy better. We give them help in defining their requirements, identifying shortlist vendors, doing full service selection in terms of managing the RFP and vendor demonstration process. And we also help vendors out too by getting the word out and understanding what they do well by benchmarking vendors and understanding where they fit into the marketplace. So that's what we do as an organization, and why we think it's important, and why I think it's important for you to listen today of what we think is going on in 2017. You know, what is the evolving market? What are the trends that are driving the market and driving the new vendors and driving really the revolution in learning technology and the application technology? It's going to lead us to a discussion on really the types of LMSs that exist in 2017 And then recently, just maybe 60 days ago or so, we had our 2016 LMS Vendor Awards, where we identified the top worthy candidates in each one of those categories. And so we went a little bit further for today to share with you on who they are and give you a little anecdote on a lot of them, but then also show you who's bubbling up in 2017 in these specialists, because the market was so easy to cover 20 years ago. It was the easiest thing in the world because there's only a handful of vendors out there, but that's not the case anymore. It's hard for analysts, it's definitely hard for vendors, and without a doubt it's difficult for buyers to sort it all out. So let's get going. I'll start right at the top here, and you know, I've read a lot, you've all read a lot, I'm sure, this year or last year, and you know, ever since the talent management providers acquired the top tier LMS vendors here, or the former top tier LMS vendors a few years ago, we've been hearing that this LMS is going to die and it's going to be replaced by integrated talent management, or it's going to be replaced now by content and informal learning and adaptive learning or video. It's you know, there's all these opinions of the new technology that is out there that's going to replace the LMS, but folks, it's never going to die, at least not for a long time. There's always going to be a need to bring a measurable way to bring learners and content together. And just in the last 4 years, other than the 20 years that I've been following, but the last 3 full years rather of talented learning, you know, I've seen so many new vendors enter the marketplace, plus discovering the ones that have been here before. And so there's an increase in the number of vendors, not by like 5% or 20%, by like thousands of percent. I mean, there used to be just 10 or 12, and now there's 700 different vendors out there. So this is significant on what's going on, and these 700 vendors just aren't going into business, getting investments, and doing this for fun. They're doing this because there's a market need and they're making money or trying to make money, and all of that is evidence that the LMS market is on fire. Now it is changing, and it's changing from being a cost reduction and an automation tool to being a strategic profit-making tool. That's for sure. If that definition changes the LMS, then there might be some credits. But the other thing that's changing is that with all the new technologies that are out there, I think people have really become to be fed up with expensive, complex, large talent management systems if they don't need them. And we're going to talk more about that today on what that means. But I think what it means initially is that the large-scale market is just lumbering on. If you close your eyes, Rip Van Winkle-ish 10 years ago, or 100 years ago in the story, but 10 years ago in the LMS story, and woke up today, it'd be hard to see a whole lot of difference. Maybe there's a little bit more mobile and a little bit more social, but generally you have big, laborious systems that are a challenge to configure. There's probably more LMS functionality in each one of those systems than most organizations ever use. So it's a big challenge of pruning it down, making it usable and fun to use for any organization. And but because of all that, it's needed though, because large-scale LMS is tough. If you're managing a global entity and it has multiple business units that are on multiple continents and different languages, the different business units sometimes are complementary, sometimes they're in a universe of their own in comparison to other parts of the business. They have their own content, their own catalogs, their own regulations, their own safety regulations. They have their own privacy data, sometimes their own integrations. All this has to be working simultaneously in one learning management system and keep all administrators, all instructors, all users happy. That's tough to do. So the problem is that there's only a handful of companies that can do that, and so if you have those type of needs, you're going to be lumbered along with an old school learning management system, because once you buy them, and most of these organizations have had these learning management systems for a long time, they get woven into the cultural, the technical, and the political landscape that it's tough to pull them out either by themselves or worse yet, as part of a broader suite. So if the LMS is integrated into a broader performance or talent or financial or HR suite and shares data with all of those back and forth in workflow, there really has to be something cataclysmic to cause a change in one of those systems. So as a result of that, there's really not a lot of change and really not a lot of innovation because of that. So with that being said, the cloud arrived into this environment, and now it's not like yesterday. It's now 5 to 8 years old that the concept of multi-tenancy cloud has entered into the marketplace. And at first it was kind of young and juvenile, and it did some very, the LMSs that were cloud-based were doing some pretty basic, easy things. And it was kind of unproven on how technically solid it was from scalability or securability standpoint, but all those concerns really, maybe not the security is always a concern in any IT system in 2017, but all those concerns have went away, not just with LMSs, but with everything from financial or accounting or marketing automation. Like every industry, every type of software is in the cloud, so the argument's done. And so the cloud is solid. And this has made a big difference between learning management system, because all the reasons that you had a big learning management system you don't need anymore. So you don't need IT involvement, rarely. You don't have to buy servers or do anything of that. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on an integration, because integrations are generally pre-built and configurable versus custom. All of this allows for a very low barrier of entry for both buyers and sellers into the market. New LMS vendors can enter in by having a very simple system and targeting a very simple niche versus trying to build everything for everybody. And all of this has made an emphasis on customer success. And put together, the cloud has taken the high risk and high cost situation of learning management, and really made it low risk and high reward, and opening that learning management system up to everybody. And just real quickly, what happened is that you used to have to pay all your money up front if you needed a learning management system. You bought the license up front, you paid for the implementation up front, and the implementation was long and expensive, and generally by the time you started using your learning management system as a buyer, the love loss was already apparent. You've already had 9 months or 12 months of a bumpy road to get to that point before you can even start trying to earn a return on investment. And then the ongoing investment to keep that solution was enough to make it worth it. You didn't want to leave your learning management provider, but not enough that your learning management provider bent over backwards to try to make customers happy. And so customer satisfaction kind of went down. But what's changed with the cloud is now that we have this SaaS license that allows a shared risk and shared return. It's a buyer-friendly model. You pay as you go. You pay for what you use. So it's based on usage in a lot of cases versus on named usage. The license can go up and down over the years. So if you have 1,500 users this year and 2,500 the next and 2,000 the year after, the license can expand and contract. So you're paying for what you need generally because the software is already installed up in the cloud. There is no implementation or technical implementation. It's more setup and configuration of the application versus all the hardcore things, and that reduces time and money and cost to set up, but also the ongoing costs. And because customers can leave at any time and they're not stuck with their vendor by paying all that money up front, if you pay $1 million up front, it's not like you can go tomorrow to your management and say, you know what, I really don't care for our vendor. But if you can just replace, if you're spending $100,000 a year and you can go to your management and say, I'd like to spend $90,000 a year and get this much extra, that's a pretty easy case to make, or a lot easier case to make. And so because of that, vendors are much more customer-centric right now. And so I ask vendors, time and time again, what are your top 3 things that differentiate you? And now in 2016 and 17, customer service and attention to customer detail is almost always up on that list. Maybe that's lip service, but I don't think so, because customers have a lot of option to go somewhere else. And so that's what's changed. And so if if the talent management providers are in all these large-scale companies, the large multinational and the global companies, and these LMSers are interwoven into this broader suites, and there's no getting them out of there unless something cataclysmic happens. There's no replacing of all these systems or part of these systems very often. If that's the case, then why are there so many learning management companies? And that's because the new learning management companies, they just avoid the old talent management. That's what's fun about this. This is cracking me up as I get into this, and I watch but almost nobody wants to go head to head because they realize it's a fool's errand to try to dislodge one of these systems out of there, especially with a smaller SaaS solution. So they just go everywhere else that the big guys aren't. And that's where all the innovation is happening in the industry right now. It's in the standalone LMS opportunities. It's definitely in small and medium businesses of all sizes, from dozens of people in your company to hundreds or thousands, all the people that couldn't afford learning management systems in a variety of industries. But there's also all kinds of extended enterprise, of course, and we'll get into that in just a little bit, but all the non-HR or employee type LMSs. But then there's the strategies of these new LMSs to peacefully coexist with the talent management providers and really provide what they can. So all kinds of organizations are putting front ends to these systems so that you don't even have to interact with. When I say talent management, that's like the sum totals, cornerstones, success factors, Sabas, those type of oracles, those type of organizations that put front ends on top of them that are easier to use and scale down, where they make mobile apps that share data with the LMS, provide learning management system-like capabilities, but it's incremental. It's not something that the learning management system can do, or it brings in content. And we see a lot of organizations like Degreed or Edcast now that are bringing, they sit on top, they pull data from the LMS and from other systems and content and share and make it in a social way. And because all of that is in reaction to the knowing that you can't dislodge these systems, but you can make them better. And so a lot of LMS organizations are kind of wrapping around the edges to find value. And but all of this is good for everybody except the large-scale buyers, I think, who are somewhat stuck. But with these new companies finding places to go, one of the places that they found is just to be specialists. So all the traditional LMS providers is always being about how big can you get. They were public organizations. When I worked for my first organization, it was always around the quarter. My first LMS organization, everything was around the fiscal quarter or the calendar quarter, because we had to show Wall Street new sales, new incremental professional licenses, and so we were always in nothing but new customer acquisition. How big could we get? There was no quarter that you could take off or a year that you could take off without having your stock price crushed because of that. And so, what happened is everybody was a generalist. They needed to win any type of opportunity that they could find and be able to be configurable for any type of opportunity. And that was really the strategy of all of us LMS providers before. But now, now if you're a generalist, you're competing on price. So if you're a new LMS or you're a specialist and you're just trying to be a generalist, then almost always it's a race to the bottom on what your license costs, because there's lots of generalists out there. And so what I find is that very few generalists are trying to enter the market now. Everybody that's entering the market are specialists, and they're competing on value. It's not a race to the bottom. In fact, it's whatever you can get from an LMS standpoint, because it's all about being the best in a niche market. And these LMS providers are using many different facets to provide this differentiation or this value, and they're targeting their solutions to just a particular learning audience. So whether it's employees, or whether it's channel partners or franchise dealers, or whether it's new customers, and then by who they focus on, they start developing these different use case scenarios that you would actually apply this technology and why you would apply it. So instead of saying, I have an LMS that can do everything and anything, what do you need to do? We can do anything. I've heard that a million times in my career. What it is right now is you have a customer training problem. Let me show you how we can improve the onboarding process, shorten the time, increase complementary sales, and increase your customer retention or renewal rate on an annual basis through the application of this learning technology. Now that's cool, and that's a lot different than saying I'm a generalist LMS. And so everything from these use cases to how they price, to the how they count usage, to how they set up and implement and configure and integrate the system, and what systems they integrate, and what systems are productized integrations, and what industry and language or region that you belong to, and what compliance regulations that you're trying to adhere to. And all these things, including the active executive level involvement of the founders, are actively involved in selling the organization or selling the solution to buyers. They're not up in some ivory tower. They're coming from these niche markets, and they're adding credibility and value. And all these things are wrapped around learning management systems now. And it's not just one or two. We're talking hundreds that are like this. But without a doubt, the area that is most on fire, the most innovation, is extended enterprise. Extended enterprise is a broad term that means a lot to a lot of people, but basically it means you're non-employee learning. So it's anybody that's not employee. It could be, and typically it's centered around revenue, direct revenue or indirect revenue. So using content to either selling content for direct revenue or using it as a complementary product or line of products to your main business. And so, for example, if you sell IT security SaaS solutions, you might develop content on security protocols, that you can sell alongside your core solution. So there's a lot of that indirect selling revenue that's going on also now with extended enterprise. But then there's also just the pure change behavior that's happening in governments or academia or nonprofit organizations. Just this morning, I was watching Good Morning America, and passively here as I'm frantically do my final checks, and what I heard is that the state of New Jersey is offering these baby boxes, and these are baby box. Apparently there's like 35 or 3,600 infants that die of sudden infant death syndrome in America every year. And so what New Jersey is doing is they're providing these cardboard boxes that are actually cribs you can put right next to your bed for these parents, and they're free, and all you have to do is take a 15-minute online course to get this free for your baby. And that online course teaches you about SIDS, it teaches you about what it is, how to avoid it, how, ways that you can prevent that. And so, governments are using education to change behavior. All that is extended enterprise, all that is non-HR, and what that's done is that it's just exploded the marketplace. 700 vendors now, every flavor, size, shape, region, industry, focus, business use exist. There's rarely, the minute that I find somebody that's competing in a new category, this is also just a fun part of this job, all of a sudden I'll be like, I've never seen that before. That is fantastic. And every time I say that, within 60 days I'll see it 3 more times, because that's how fast it's coming around as new competitors are entering in to the marketplace. And what it's leading to is the Great Awakening, not from hundreds of years ago, but the new Great Awakening in the learning management market. And so let me help you here and connect some dots based on my research. If you bought your LMS more than a few years ago, if you own a talent management LMS and only use the LMS functions, if you own a talent learning management system and it's your first LMS, or it's your first LMS and you're about ready to buy a talent learning management system, if you are an administrator and you're actively activating and deactivating users on a regular basis to try to stay under some license cap, if you haven't upgraded, you're not on a SaaS solution, you haven't upgraded in the last 2 or 3 years, if you have a named user license model, but you're an extended enterprise of any sort, or an association, or a commercial LMS, or a for-profit LMS, or you have an historical annual support and maintenance contract and annual hosting, you haven't rebid your solution in 3 years, if you fall into any of those categories, guess what? You're paying too much. It's as simple as that. And that's the Great Awakening now in 2016 and in 2017. Back when you had to buy a big generalist, massive learning management system, even if you had just a teeny little need, that was your only choice. And but now that's not your choice. And so if you're paying too much, what's that mean? Out here in the country, we always call bringing a sledgehammer to a nail. Sure, it's going to work, but it's a lot more than you need. So let me show you what I run into on a daily basis here. I'm not even kidding. On a daily basis, all through my career, I've heard the catchphrase, nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM. And that's true, And what that means is you buy a big solution that's proven and experienced. You might pay double, but you're not going to get fired for buying it because it is, it's so established. And so lots of LMS buyers take that approach. But look at this example. So say you have 5,000 users. It could be employees, it could be extended enterprise, doesn't matter. But make some assumptions, like it's all US based. This is the organization's second LMS, so this isn't their first rodeo. It's the typical online content stuff, nothing crazy, nothing custom, your typical learning management needs that an organization would have on a US-based thing. And so say they go buy a talent management system and they spend $50,000 to set that thing up, and they have to spend $125,000 a year. And that's $25 a user a year. That's really not a lot. It's easy to go 30 or 35 or even more, sometimes even 60, depending on who you're talking to and how novice you are at buying. But say $25 a year, and you're a small company, 5,000 users. That's not overly big to one of these TM companies. So you're basically a small fish in a big sea in terms of support and implementation and project teams, and and at the end of the day, you're probably only using 20 or 25% of the LMS because it has to support all those multinational needs and this global compliance needs. But if you add all that up, you're going to drop about $425,000 over 3 years from that. Now just think about this. So if you go to a specialist LMS, this is what I see every day, and what I found in 125 or 120 of the 125 that I've reviewed here, they have processes that are built for data migration, so they'll help you get off your existing LMS pretty easily. It's all automated, semi-automated here with tools and templates that allow you to get your data from one system to another and processes. Because you're going to a specialist LMS, you're a bigger fish in a small pond, so you're getting better implementation teams, you're interacting with the executives, have better support. If the LMS meets all your requirements and you're using 75% of the LMS, and because these are niche players, most of their other customers are using 75%. So you have all of the customer base kind of all marching in the same direction. They typically charge 50 cents on the dollar. So it'd be a 25K setup and maybe $10 a user a year with a 3-year cost of $200,000, which leaves a delta between these two solutions of almost $250,000, 200-some thousand dollars. And this isn't an extreme case. This is just 5,000 users. So you could take this down to 1,000 or 1,500 users, but if you split it up to 25 or 50,000 users, you're talking 7 figures over a multiple year period. And now what can you do with 7 figures? And I think that's the lesson of 2017 is if you're dropping $200,000 extra on your platform, you're not putting it into content, instructional designers, video, you're not doing anything if you're not using that system. And so it's a waste of money. And so what that leads is that it's finding the right LMS. It just isn't easy in 2017. Even if I convinced you, is escape possible, from your LMS, now what? Who are the specialists? What do I need? I don't want to hate my choice. These are things that I hear every day, and so that's what's led us here to bring our research together from a market standpoint. And I've struggled with this, folks. I've struggled here as I started reviewing these LMSs one by one. I try to put them into categories, but then every month or every couple of weeks, the method to my madness gets broken, where I find things that aren't in my category, and so I've went from a few categories to dozens of categories, and now the pendulum's swinging back to the kind of few in the variations. But the point being is that there's so many different types of learning management systems and so many different ways that you could categorize them that I don't know who's right or wrong, and I'm trying to find out here as I go along. But what we decided on is that we think the best way to divide the learning management system market up is the intended use or the intended audience. And so there was always that corporate and academic LMSs for a generation now. Similar capability, well, not similar, similar capabilities in the sense that they manage learners and content, but very dissimilar in terms of managing students versus training corporate. But what's happened now is that there's a whole new generation of learning management systems that service associations. Just yesterday I saw a fabulous presentation on an association LMS and how they integrate with an association management systems and the work cases and the usage that they're driving, and how the functional case is really to identify members that are at risk and drive better member retention, all kinds of business drivers that you just wouldn't see in any of these other types, but specialists that provide such credibility there. And the other side of that is really the for-profit continuing education market. It's huge. Anybody selling formal continuing education, professional continuing education, like continuing medical CMEs and CNEs and CPDs and so forth, but it's also just people like myself that are selling education on how to buy LMSs, or people how to sell education on how to cook better. But now with online tools and the SaaS marketplace and the cloud LMSs, lots and lots of people are trying to sell content of various of shapes and sizes. But if I just take one of these circles, this corporate circle, to show you how complex this gets in a second, there's actually 4 different types of corporate LMSs, we think. Those that are focused at employees or channel and partner or customers or extended enterprise, which are the all-purpose that do all of this. But what's different in 2017 is that we have specialists that focus just for employees or just for prospects and customers or just for channel partners and customers or any combination of here, and they can sell. If you're not selling right here in employees, all these other places in the organization are external to HR. And so there's all different kinds of organizations or solutions now that are targeted right towards the HR marketplace or the non-HR marketplace. Okay, got some questions here. Let me move those to the side. I'll get to those in just a second. So the different 4 types of corporate, and you could do the same thing if you looked at excuse me. Oh, I'm jumping ahead of myself. If you looked at any one of these circles, for the for-profit, academic, or the association, there's subsections inside of each one of those on how they're trying to solve the problems of this unique setup or those unique business cases. And on top of that, from a professional service standpoint, for each one of those circles, there's a whole range of vendors that provide everything from no services to global system integration and managed outsourcing type services. And so if you pick a circle, employee learning, there's free self-service LMSs, Docebo, Talent LMS that are out there. You can set them up today for free. Go on their website without a credit card, start a 30-day trial, continue it afterwards. There's assisted setup organizations like eLogic Learning or Absorb LMS, that provide basic setup, project management to get you through the process. There's a full service that's more like what you're used to of, having full project teams coming on site. You got project managers, implementation consultants. These type of LMS vendors also provide complementary service like mobile and e-learning development. They're really skilled at data migrations and conversions and things like that. And then the global integrators, the Rapid LDs, Accentures, those type of folks that are, helping you do the most complex things and hooking it up. But every one of those circles has this whole range. So to make matters worse, once you find an LMS, you got to determine, what type of professional services that you need and, and how that rolls into, the vendors that you're looking at. And that's really what, brings us here to the top LMSs. So for each one of these top LMSs, we have a few different categories here that I'll show you here. There's also on the website, if you go to talentlearning.com and scroll down just a couple of blog posts, you'll see our 2016 awards here. And so today is kind of a combination of who were the top 5 here from just a couple months ago, and then who's bubbling up as mentioned before. But that channel and partner LMS. So all the companies on this list, they have that whole range. They're going to be this whole range of professional services on each one of these lists. So it's it's a matter of, if you get down to this list, you have to certainly define your requirements and what you need and align with those vendors that provide little or more services. Typically, if your first LMS, if it's 2017 and your first LMS, you're typically much more comfortable on the left-hand side of the scale. If you're on your second, third, or fourth LMS, it's almost impossible to be anywhere else but on the right-hand side of this scale. So if you're a channel and partner LMS, now this is all the innovation in the industry. It's not happening in those common areas that are common between association, corporate, academic, and continuing education LMSs. The common areas of LMS that apply to all of those, I don't think a whole lot's happening in that. Where all the innovation is happening is what's driving those specific use cases. So with channel and partner learning, the specific use case is to build a channel network that goes from selling no money to $10 million a year. An employee LMS is about taking you from the mailroom to the boardroom, but that's not the case with like a channel LMS. It's about getting your channel partners, people that represent your organization but are not your organization, and they also have their employees, and together all of them are selling your products and services, either from high tech or manufacturing. And those channel partners have partner relationship management systems. They have goals. They've got commissions and quotas and certification levels, products that they're authorized to sell and resell and service and that they're certified on. And all of those things impact the training that they get, the commission rates that they get, and all of that is built with a channel LMS that's integrated into channel type learning solutions. And there's lots of organizations that target this: Litmus, Expertus, eLogic Learning, Saba Software, Cornerstone. All the traditional talent management usually have capabilities just by the nature, the complexity of their systems. But who I think is really doing good in this is Docebo, one of the free trial LMSs, easy to go in there. Docebo has all these productized integrations that you can choose from virtual classrooms to Shopify, and it's just so easy to go in there, check boxes, pay for what you need, and integrate a system. Logic Bay, who focuses here on number 4, all on really franchises, helping dealers and franchise dealers and all the intricacies that go into dealer management. Latitude Learning, working also in providing customized dealer and franchise and automobile type industries. Blue Volt, who's just really catching on fire here as an organization that has built this great ecosystem for the trades, manufacturers, distributors, associations, and retailers. Brought the kind of like the 4 aspects of their world together with like making tools and hardware and construction tools and HVAC stuff, and bringing all these different constituents together that are all part of the same ecosystem, and training them kind of all from the same system. And for 2 years in a row, NetExam, easy to find organization out down in Texas, Austin, Texas, I think, and they create just high-end channel programs for high-tech organizations and associations, but high-tech organizations and their global channel distribution networks, doing some pretty special stuff. Customer LMSs, this used to be a category where everybody said they could be a customer LMS. And I think another funny thing is, as you talk to LMSs, vendors, they don't necessarily will put themselves neatly into any one of the categories that we define there. I think their strategy in a lot of cases is still to think that they belong in more places that they do, especially the generalists. But customer LMS is a great example of that. You think because there's no compliance, it should be pretty easy. You have a customer, you give them some content, or you let them have access to content, and maybe that part of it is easy, but it's more about growing a customer business. It's about attracting customers, getting them to come back, get them the content, get them to swipe their credit card, grow their business, buy I signed up for that. I use those Adobe Photos. I can't think of what it's called. And so I have access to millions of photos. But, the whole time they're trying to train me and cross-sell me on different applications, Premiere or Photoshop, and, to get more and more of their complementary products. But lots of software companies are doing that. And a lot of times there is complementary products that make a lot of sense for their users. And so to grow that business and then to manage the renewals and then to tie it into Salesforce.com or any other CRM so that you can see training and all the other interactions that you have to this person attend a webinar or meet at a trade show or download this document and take this learning nugget or this nano nugget. All of that is in customer LMSs, all tied to making a profit. Cord LMS, once again, Experts and eLogic Learning show up on a few different lists because of their versatility. Totara, a really nice open source, pseudo open source type platform that has a global network of these implementers and partners that bring local level professional experience to an enterprise level platform that allows for good customer learning and really any other type of learning. Your membership learning also coming up. But some organizations that really specialize and do only customer learning are SkillJar. NetExam shows up with their customer and channel. Litmus with their new training ops product. So last year, Kalai's Cloud, the owner of Litmus, invested in a company called View Central, who was one of the top 1 or 2 last year of customer learnings, and really rounded out Litmus's category. LearnDot is a organization that provides just customer learning for software for SaaS software companies. So if you're a SaaS software company in any industry and you want to roll out a customer learning program for your new customers, LearnDot specializes in that. KMI Learning, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, doing high-end stuff. They took a well-known system integrator consulting organization here and took all their content and turned it into a $30 million business, for that organization for paid content. So they're really doing some high-end things with some consulting companies, as I met, big customer portals. Compliance LMS, where LMS has all started. Where it started when, I started 20 years ago. You bought an LMS because you needed to solve your compliance problem. What's compliance? If you got to follow regulations, you have to make sure people have training, and you can prove that training. That's the original business case of an LMS. Compliance gets tricky, or regulations get tricky in a hurry if you have employees that cross over jurisdictions. And jurisdictions can be at the state level, sometimes at the local level, certainly at the federal and international level. And so if you're an organization that has employees across all of those different jurisdictions, or lots of different jurisdictions, managing the complexity of compliance and making sure that you're always in compliance is a tough thing to do. And the tougher the industry, or the more high consequence the industry, the more important it is. So, pharmaceutical, healthcare, transportation, nuclear energy, those type of things, have stricter, thankfully, compliance requirements than being an LMS analyst, for example. So bubbling up in 17 organizations that are good IMC, it should be IMC, excuse me, over in Germany, doing a fantastic job with a very configurable system. Max IT here in the U.S. Simply Digi, haven't said their name yet, but a nice Albuquerque-based LMS that real strong on compliance, skills and competencies. The traditional LMS providers, or talent management providers. A new solution that I see, not so new, they've been around for generations, but their platform has really come along, is Gyrus. Gyrus Solutions and their LMS, SumTotal long stander on this list. eLogic Learning, again showing up just for a high level configurability on compliance and mandatory training, risk. Love these guys. One of their case studies is that they use XAPI to tie compliance training to oil workers that are about ready to get on a helicopter out to the oil pad, and they swipe their card and they make sure that their compliance is up before they board that helicopter. And not only that, but while they're out on the platform, to make sure that all their training will stay in compliance for their duration of that trip. And they do all that because the cost to fly these oil workers back and forth to the platforms are so expensive. So just doing some really neat things with XAPI. And then long-standing out of Hong Kong, Net Dimensions, operating around the world in high-consequence industries in compliance. Talent LMS, I've been disparaging of Talent LMSs, not because there's anything to disparage about, it's just because they have to be so big and bulky by their nature. And and for reasons mentioned, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of change up or switching solutions in the industry. So the names are generally the same as I think that you would normally see. But you see the Infor, Know-It-All is a new name on here. LearnShare, Skylab Italia, bringing some European expertise to this. Sure People up in Toronto. Simply Digi, again, providing nice skills and competency, performance management, skill gap analysis, basic succession planning to a learning management system. Got some newcomers. CD2 Learning came in at number 5. They provide a really nice user-friendly environment for a talent management system. And not only that, they combine some pretty slick LCMS type authoring, really some advanced authoring, eliminating the need for third-party authoring. Certainly success factors and SumTotal and Saab and Cornerstone, names that we know. Generally, you probably take those top 4 and jumble them up as you could line up 100 people and find 25 that believe each one of those should be in the number 1 position. So, lumbering on from a talent management standpoint. But the extended enterprise LMS, who's really doing it all? Who can do just a customer? Who can do just a channel? Who can do it all together? Can they sell directly into any one of those pieces, or can they start from employees and expand out and provide the value to expand out into the extended areas of the LMS systems? But if you're just a channel, or you're just a customer or an association or a for-profit, I think that you chase the specialists that just do that. But if you're a corporation and you have the vision of bringing these different audiences together and having that shared economy of scale, from a technology, from a thought, from a license standpoint, from a user count standpoint, then extended enterprise that can do all the different groups simultaneously and try to keep everybody happy are the LMSs for you. So once again, IMC and Sumto Blackboard coming on with their extended enterprise. Always been in academic, but now moving out and doing more extended enterprise type initiatives. Litmus in their training apps, and Saba, Absorb, low cost, free trial, easy setup. Nice way to get into the game, support multiple organizations. Cornerstone's always been really strong, probably the most user-friendly of this. Expertus, probably one of the, if not the nicest, one of the nicest looking LMS systems in the marketplace, just from a UI standpoint. What I like about these guys, in addition to having a strong learner UI, which not everybody has. Some LMSs are certainly better than others, but they spend a lot of money on taking that same type of flexibility and moving it right into the admins. And so all the functionality they have in searching and narrowing down and filtering and all the handy ways that you can get the content as a learner is the same across all the levels of administration, making it a real nice platform, especially when you have to manage multiple groups and audiences. Docebo, who we talked about before, out of Italy now with North American presence in Athens, Georgia, delivering a nice global, multilingual, highly integrated solution. And then finally, eLogic Learning, for the second year in a row, is really the top of this all-purpose LMSs, in our opinion. That goes not just for the functionality, but just the value of what you pay for what you get, and the level of service and commitment we think is pretty special there. Continuing education. So this is by far this has a lot of different names. We struggle with what to call this. We sometimes want to call it commercial training, but it's the professional trainers. It's the professional training companies out there. It is anybody that is selling content, anybody from a subject matter expert to a company pushing huge digital libraries of content. But continuing education, conservatively, according to the U.S. Census, is like a $46 billion industry in the U.S. alone. This isn't chump change. This is a really serious, and that includes like the content, the platform to deliver, and most of that figure from the U.S. Census is really centered around the formal professional continuing education. If you're a doctor in Massachusetts, you need 22 hours every 2 years of content, that type of thing. But the market for the informal content, teaching you how to do anything, from repair your tractor to to play the saxophone, that market in itself it probably dwarfs that by double. But so the organizations that really focus on that is organizations like the association LMSs like Abilla with their Freestone LMS, Blue Sky eLearn, Firmwater, SkyPrep, SmarterU, WBT Systems are all organizations that are really good at having business to selling commerce to groups, to businesses, B2B, and selling it to consumers or individual B2C commerce. Continuing education are usually good at management, user segmentation, strong integration, lots of virtual classroom and informal learning, social learning taught into it. Some companies that are really doing great is Yardstick, just love Thought Industries, nice e-commerce centric. LMS, everything is around e-commerce authoring and trying to sell commerce content. Almost nobody on this list is bogged down by HR learning. They come at it from a professional career standpoint, experience standpoint. They don't come from HR, so these systems aren't burdened by a lot of conventional wisdom that we've installed in ourselves here over the years. As a result, they do a lot of things better, faster, quicker, and cheaper than we're used to. Ethos CE out of Philadelphia, here servicing healthcare and other association continuing education providers. eLogic Learning, your membership, the former Digital Ignite, doing some really high-end special things with selling content and continuing education. Rolling right into the association vendors. I see more activity in association market now in 2016 and 17 than I have in my whole career. Organizations, associations have kind of migrated from being the only show in town, the only nonprofit place you would go if you were a professional. If you're a medical professional of a certain flavor or persuasion, you had an association that you went to, and that was really the only professional place that you could go to find like-minded people or content or continuing education. But that's not the case anymore. Now there's those for-profit commercial companies, there's individual mom and pops, there's universities and academia. They're all providing continuing education content for professionals. And so now associations, though they are a nonprofit, are now in a profit game. They have to compete with companies that think about profit. And so right, wrong, or indifferent, they're being drug into the modern age of e-commerce and profitable profit-centered training. And as a result, it's really exciting. Association management systems exist, which have long existed in associations that manage just about everything other than training, and so and sometimes training. And because of that, there's rarely one size fits all for each association, especially those that have been around with longer lasting educational missions. There's a lot of custom thinking and configuration that has to go in. So I find that these systems are a lot tougher than people would think, and right now are really commanding top dollar, I think, from a standpoint of value and complexity. The organizations that we see, like Classroom 24/7, Digitech Interactive, a nice company that provides a really nice SaaS platform for healthcare and other associations. Ethos shows back up. Web Courseworks, which is like a systems integrator for healthcare associations and healthcare LMSs in general, really provide high level of deployment and integration. Tesla tackling the same problem over in the UK. Topics, which is a learning management system that designed for associations, but it's got a capped cost at, I forget what it is, 30,000 plus or minus or so, depending on versions. That allows you to have unlimited usage at 30,000. So depending on what you're trying to do, a real nice economical type solution. Your membership, which is your membership and Abilla. We'll see here in just a second, are two association management systems that acquired learning management systems over the last 24 months and have kind of folded them into their association management system, similarly to how talent management systems did it previously with LMS companies, changing the landscape. So Abilla and both your membership are because they now own both ends of this equation, the LMS and the AMS side of the suite, they're able to provide an interoperability, economies of scale, a common user profile, a common user interface for association members, whether they be individual members or organizational members, and doing some neat things because of that. Blue Sky eLearn out of California, Southern California, I think, and what they do is they help associations that are now coming to the same conclusion about raising money, but they do it in a different way. It's not just through the sale of content, but it's through advertising and sponsorships, and they've helped this whole system to allow organizations to take their first steps into digitizing their annual shows, for example, and turning that into video and content and having simultaneous virtual and live conferences and really pushing the envelope there. And for 2 years in a row, we've awarded WBT Systems out of Dublin, Ireland as our top association learning management system, and primarily because it's modern and it's just downright powerful. This is, if you got a serious problem from an association standpoint, you got lots of audiences, you're doing skills and competencies, you might have regional and affiliates and integration to any one or multiple AMS systems and integrations in general, and to need to tie this into your on a very custom basis, sometimes into your application. That's what these folks specialize on, all the way to having a very straight line LMS application or SaaS application. The academic market, there's probably hundreds of analysts that focus specifically on this market. We do a lot of in the academic market, especially where it's outside of the student managing the K through 12 or higher ed, but how they're reaching from a continuing education standpoint and audiences in general. Our number one vendor here that's really taken the industry by storm is Canvas with their SaaS-based higher ed learning management system. NovoEd, a new name coming on the scene right now that's providing higher levels of interoperability between, interoperability is not the right word, but between students and classes and teachers and collaborations and sharing and projects and that whole collaborative learning inside a cohort or class type environment. It's very modern, easy to use. It seems to be certainly a welcome trend inside the education market. And then there's lots of organizations like SchoolKeep or Joomla or Frog Education that are working on their different segments of trying to automate academic innovation. And our last one here is the learning tech innovators. So these are the organizations that we think are changing the ball game by doing things incremental or new and new that we just haven't seen before. Lessonly providing just a streamlined, easiest end user LMS space, a new spring tying in informal learning. We talked about CD2 tying in LCMS authoring type capabilities. iWise 2, which has not only authoring but a full LCMS or CMS type capabilities, making it really powerful for association and organizations that have digital libraries and video libraries. Meet Maestro creates mobile apps that are sales-based, that are for sales training and for managing and mentoring and for shoulder-to-shoulder presentation with clients. So it's all LMS type capabilities and content, but meant mainly for internal or external sales professionals. Know-it-all, which is kind of like the Dropbox for learning. They put a free front end on any of your content that you have as an organization that might be in any of your social channels, and kind of bring it in one place and allow you to sell premium content under that umbrella. Grovo bringing their nano or micro learning to the table. So a new trend in LMSs, and maybe it's not even LMSs depending on how you define it, but it's the platform and the content, or the content that sits on the platform. Grover provides an LMS, but a whole library of micro learning video-based content that organizations can use to up their ability or up the level of their content. And a couple new players, Edcast, or relative new players, getting some nice funding and developing their informal adaptive learning platforms. These are platforms that learn what you learn, so you get to, based on your profile or demographics or things that you like or dislike or groups that you join or topics or tags that you like, it gets smarter and watches how you interact with it and what you read and what's on your calendar and things like that. And they bring in and propose new content to you in an adaptive learning way, so that you can get smarter in the ways that you want, and the algorithms are getting smarter to drive that relevant content to you. So it's not perfect yet, but it's coming. It's some really nice stuff happening in 2017. So that's a lot. I know that today's presentation isn't interactive as most of the ones that we do, because we just wanted to get all this information, which is probably could have been a 3-hour webinar if I'd slow down a little bit. But what we want you to learn is that the LMS isn't going to die. In fact, it is now exploding really across all these different new innovation areas and business uses that aren't just corporate or academic anymore. And it's about for-profit and driving revenue. And the innovation now in the LMS marketplace is in the specialist LMSs. And so the key is for any buyers, people that have learning management systems or are thinking about learning management systems, is really determining what you want to do and how it's going to aid your business, and looking for specialists that can do that. And what you'll find is that you don't have to spend a lot of money comparatively to find organizations that were built to do exactly what you need to do. All you really need to do, though, is define your requirements, which is the first step to help you get to find those specialists. And I think it's just prudent to always remember that if you're spending $250,000 or $10 more on your platform than you have to, I think it's a waste of money. As an LMS sales guy for 13 years, I don't think I ever uttered that phrase one time, but as I continue to step back and look at this from a buyer standpoint, I just don't see any reason to buy IBM if you don't need it. There's no reason to spend $250,000 that you're not spending on marketing and content to make that solution better, just so that you have a platform that's a name brand. At least that's our help. So if you need help on any of this stuff, we'll provide it. TalenTlearn.com has certainly all the free resources. Check out the Almanac page from the 2016, but the exciting thing that we've done is in 2017, we're just a few weeks away from releasing. So our Almanac now is going to be, instead of PDF based, we've moved it. It is now interactive with an interactive guide, lots of examples and videos and screenshots of 25 different feature sets from around the industry. Lots of LMS providers were gracious enough to provide examples. So it really is, I think, the definitive place here to educate yourself about the LMS market, features and functionality, trends that exist. We also provide LMS shortlisting and full service LMS selection. Just reach out to me personally. I'll get you pointed in the right direction. John Lay at TalentedLearning.com. We will provide a recording of this and distribute the slides appropriately. And let me double back here to the questions that I've been woefully ignoring here and make sure if I don't get all of these answered. Thanks everybody for attending, and I appreciate so many people from around the world coming and registering, and just humbled by the interest here that from the learning community, and thanks very much for that. And if I don't answer your questions right now, I'll follow up personally with any questions here that you left throughout the show. So thanks much. We'll see you on February 16th is our next one coming up. It's the Insider's Guide to LMS Buying. So we'll kind of continue on the trend here, but instead of just telling about what the market is, we're going to roll up our sleeves and give you a series of practical advice here to help figure out how to define your requirements, and then get your find your way to the right type of vendors in the marketplace. So somebody says, what is the association market? So just think of an association. There's 72,000 in the United States alone, but there's an association for everything. There's the American Medical Association, there's the Pennsylvania Christmas Tree Growers Association, you name it, every industry, every flavor, every type of doctor, nurse, every type of professional practitioner, from beautician to arborist, has an association that you can join as a professional. And 95% of those associations have education of their members and providing social acquaintances of their member as a top part of their mission statement. So really in line with the LMS market. Okay, the newer SaaS vendors have a chance of taking on Saba and company. Or is this their hope to find a niche that isn't occupied yet? That's a good question. Well, what I found is that a lot of people that buy the talent management and Saba and SumTotal and SuccessFactors, they buy them because it's safe. It's a name that they've been around forever, and so what happens is very commonly, even in my own career, where people would buy a name brand system and then only use 10 or 20% of the application. And so, can these cloud-based LMSs replace those providers? It all depends, but absolutely. If it's a global multi-business unit, crazy thing with lots of integrations, probably not. But if it's an LMS that's, you're only using the LMS capabilities, and it's, U.S. or one or two region specific, and you're not doing anything crazy or cutting edge, but just, standard online learning and learning management, I think you'll find lots of solutions that are cheaper and can do the same thing. But it all depends on your requirements. If you need that complexity, you need it, and there's nothing that you can do about it. If there's a chance, what do they need to do? Is it price, or is it product or service to beat those big guys? It's exactly that. It's all those things. They're trying to be everything that the big guys aren't. They're trying to be less expensive, quicker to install, easier to choose, easier to do business with. Not that the big guys don't want to do those things, or maybe they don't, but the smaller SaaS players know that that's their competitive advantage. what application was the best all-purpose LMS. In our estimation this year and last year, we chose eLogix Learning for that particular topic. You can go to townsendlearning.com, just scroll down a couple and you'll see our 2016 awards just from 60 days ago or so, end of November, I believe. How would you think about choosing an extended enterprise LMS versus picking one that focuses on a subcomponent? Well, I think as I alluded to, I think it all depends. If I would always try to pick a subcomponent if I own that subcomponent. So if I was in charge of customer learning inside a corporation, I would want a customer learning management system. I would want the most tailored system to my needs. However, if I was in HR and my goal was to really get a federation of all the different business units and different types of extended enterprise that existed in my organization, then it'd be better to buy something, a highly configurable extended enterprise type of LMS that would give you the flexibility of supporting a lot of different efforts simultaneously. All right, well, there you have it, folks. Thanks so much for your attention, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. So I'll get this expected email out of me here with the recording, and we'll see you next month here on our next one. Thanks for supporting Talented Learning.